Good morning, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. Thank you for joining us. I'm here with my colleagues govt and Ron McKinnon, members of Parliament in the Greater Vancouver area. It's a great morning to be here at Seaspan. The day after our release of the Defence Industrial Strategy for Canada, a very big development as we move forward to work to keep Canada secure and sovereign. For us, Seaspan is the Defence Industrial Strategy in action. We can hear the noise of construction in the background. That's exactly what the Defence Industrial Strategy will be encouraging and will be facilitating as we go forward. Donc, nous avons lancé juste hier la stratégie industrielle pour la défense. C'est un moment important pour le Canada. On est fiers d'être ici à Seaspan, où il y a 5300 employés et à plus 11 000 autres employés qui travaillent dans l'écosystème de cette compagnie. 5,300 people work with Seaspan. And just as important, there are 11,000 other jobs linked to the ecosystem of this shipbuilding outfit. This is a big part of Canada's national shipbuilding strategy, which began 15 years ago. And behind me, behind us, are the women and men who are delivering on the product that Canadians are counting on. Icebreakers, naval ships, equipment, highly trained, skilled, shareholders in this outcome, people who believe in Canada's future, who understand that to have a secure and sovereign country, we also need a secure and sovereign economy. And that's exactly what we're building here and around the country. So it's a great honor to be here. This is a remarkable example of Canada's sovereign shipbuilding abilities. We can compete and win in shipbuilding. We can provide our armed forces, our Navy, with what they need to be able to keep us secure and sovereign. We can do the same by selling our capabilities around the world. And we've seen here at Seaspan a deep, deep ability in shipbuilding, which has been growing for the last 15 years. And not just in the manufacturing of physical vessels, but also in the design and the engineering, right, and the scoping, the AI applications, the computer engineering that's coming. This is a cutting-edge location for Canada, as we have at Irving and Halifax and Davie and Quebec. Donc voilà exactement pourquoi nous sommes ici, pour promouvoir la construction de tout ce que nous avons besoin pour nos forces armées canadiennes. Et c'est exactement la stratégie de la défense industrielle pour la défense, en action. So thank you very much. I'd be pleased to take any questions you might have.
Jennifer from Radio Canada CBC.
Enchanté.
Merci d'être avec nous aujourd'hui, ce matin. Les libéraux fédéraux d'essayer d'aller chercher une majorité de manière antidémocratique en recrutant des transfuges qu'on a pu voir ce matin. Qu'est-ce que vous avez à leur répondre?
La Chambre des communes depuis 22 ans. J'ai aller sur l'autre dans la Chambre des communes. C'est une décision difficile pour le parlementaire, mais c'est un choix qui a été fait. Et nous accueillons les gens qui veulent travailler en équipe. Le Parti libéral du Canada, je pense, c'est une réflexion de la société canadienne. Il y a des gens un peu à droite, des gens un peu à gauche, mais la plupart des gens au centre. Donc, si il y a des gens qui veulent venir travailler avec nous, travailler avec le Premier ministre Carney, qui a une vision, un plan pour le Canada, nous allons les accueillir. Et voilà, je pense que c'est ce qui s'est passé depuis 24 heures.
Thank you for that. And regarding strategy. If you can answer this question both in French and in English. Quelles seront les premières étapes que vous allez prendre au niveau de la stratégie d'approvisionnement? Hier, on a entendu des gens qui répondaient à cette annonce comme quoi l'approvisionnement allait devoir être revisité. Donc, qu'est-ce que vous allez faire comme première étape pour l'approvisionnement?
Nous allons continuer avec la création de l'agence de l'approvisionnement qui va être spécialisée, va être une agence indépendante avec un cadre supérieur indépendant. Nous sommes allés à l'extérieur du gouvernement chercher un talent incroyable dans M. Guzman qui va gérer cette agence et qui va l'organiser d'une façon que ça devienne très efficace pour nous. Écoutez, la responsabilité de la défense des Forces armées canadiennes, c'est d'indiquer ce que nous avons besoin en matériel, en armement, en navire. Et la spécialisation de l'agence, c'est d'aller de l'avant et d'aller acheter, de négocier, par exemple, la question des sous-marins. Ça a déjà commencé. Donc, le travail a déjà commencé il y a des mois. Ça fait quand même 6 mois qu'on commence le transfert, la transition, et ça continue, ça va être plutôt formalisé. L'agence va devenir plus indépendante légalement, et nous allons de l'avant pour que ça devienne plus efficace, plus vite, puis en même temps faire bien attention que les Canadiens et Canadiennes ont une valeur raisonnable pour leurs dépenses. To repeat in English, what we're doing next with procurement in the country is to continue to formalize the creation of our defense agency that's going to be responsible for procurement. We went outside of the public service to bring in a very senior and respected business individual to come in and help us stand it up. It is already going. There are staff that are moving forward now, for example, with the procurement of our submarine fleet between the Korean and the Norwegian-German offers. That's going to continue. It's becoming more formalized. Their job is to make procurement more efficient, more streamlined, ensuring that we get good value for money for Canadians, and we get the equipment that our Canadian Armed Forces need. Our job at DND, at the Defense Department, and with the Canadian Armed Forces is to let them know what we require. What do our women and men, our brave women and men in the Canadian Armed Forces, what do they really need? What's the cutting-edge equipment that they require? What do they need to see in these vessels being constructed right in front of us? And then it's up to that agency now to move forward and to continue to pursue those negotiations. And that's exactly what's happening.
Hi Minister, Thomas Steele from Bloomberg News. I just wanted to ask a question we've been asked many times about the 5 procurements. Coming up to a year since the Prime Minister ordered a review, if there's any updates on the timing, we might hear more about that. And also, you know, time adds money to defence procurement in kind of quite a big way. So I wonder if you've incurred any costs from waiting 10 months.
Well, I think it's no surprise. Canada's acquired the first 16 of the F-35s. We're taking delivery of some of those planes this year. Some of our pilots are in Arizona being trained now, part and parcel of the plan that was already in place. But the question of the review continues, and it will take the time that it needs. It's a very big procurement for Canada. Obviously, there are questions of interoperability, there are questions of NORAD, there are questions of industrial benefits. Those are important issues that we're wrestling to the ground. My colleague, Minister Joly, has a role to play. Obviously, we continue to sometimes having to put some financing down to keep our place in the production lineup. That was something that was shared just a week or two ago. But right now, there's no other news except to say that that review continues. But we're making a lot of progress. We're continuing to work with the United States, for example, on NORAD issues, on issues of continental security. And so that's pretty much the update.
And if I can ask a follow-up, is a mixed fleet one of the options that is being considered as part of the review, or is it one fleet or the other?
That's a question that will be answered in due course. We're paying very close attention to what is out there in terms of aircraft capabilities. You need to look at this very carefully. We need to look at the design of these aircraft, look at how they may or may not be interoperable in terms of not just our NORAD responsibilities, but our global responsibilities. Canada's playing a much larger role in the Arctic. I've just come back from Brussels and Munich, where it was very clear that NATO and our partners elsewhere expect Canada to be leading on the Arctic front. So this is something that we're also weighing. And again, the review continues. It'll take the time it needs, and when the decision's made, we'll be there to announce it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just following up on your last comment, can you talk about what Canada's role is going to be in terms of the Arctic, especially in terms of your discussions with Greenland, other European countries, in terms of strengthening collaboration in that area?
Thank you for the question. Canada is going to continue to lead in the Arctic. We're going to continue to assert our sovereignty in the Arctic, and we're going to be working with our Arctic partners. So just several days ago, we convened an Arctic 7 meeting of 7 ministers from 7 countries who are Arctic nations. We've come together now to lay track for much closer cooperation. We signed a cooperation agreement also just several days ago with Denmark, with the Faroe Islands and Greenland at the table with us. So Canada's digging down widely and deeply in the Arctic. We'll have more to say about our forward operating locations that are there now under the auspices of NORAD. We're looking at northern operating hubs. We're looking at investments in energy, major projects. We're looking at hydroelectric operations, for example, in the Iqaluit. We're looking at roads. We're looking at dual use and multi-use projects. We want to make sure that what we do build, what we do install, what we do invest in the Arctic also has a bearing on the quality of life for our Inuit who live there and who help us assert our sovereignty there. So this is going to continue, and we're going to do it in a way that it's much more cooperative. The Prime Minister was very clear in his speech in Davos some weeks ago, where he said middle powers have to come together, we have to cooperate more directly. That's exactly what we were doing for the last 4 or 5 days in Europe, meeting with 40 or 50 counterparts, including, as I say, at least 7, maybe up to a dozen Arctic countries. There are some Arctic countries that don't want a dialogue, like Russia. We know what they're up to, but we're going to move forward. We're going to build those partnerships, and we're going to execute on the plan.
Steve Drinkwater, Canadian Aviator Magazine. My question is a little bit more focused on operational aspect. I would assume that the Cyclone helicopters will be the shipborne aviation aspect on these naval vessels. My question is the Guardian drones. Will the ships have capability to launch the drones, carry and launch the drones?
I think that's a work in progress. And the question of drone use in the future is one the Department and the Canadian Armed Forces is now very much seized with. If there's one thing we learned from the prosecution of the war in Ukraine, it's that drones are now a daily fact of life. And so we're bearing down hard on research around drones, on the dispatchability of drones, size of drones, the use of drones, and it's not just in the area of military applications. Again, there are dual and multi-use possibilities here. The transportation of medication, for example, across the Arctic by drone. The extinguishing of forest fires by drone. The saving of individuals who may be caught in difficult situations, taken out of, for example, raging rivers by drone. All of these now factor into our future, and it's something that we're looking at very carefully. Thank you very much. Thank you.